So I think we're going to go ahead and get started and begin our webinar. So to introduce ourselves, my name is Dana Bryant. I'm the Outreach Officer at Volunteer West Virginia. And then we also have Christina Cochran. She is our Zoom guru and training officer. And we have a special guest with us today, Gina. She works with us at Volunteer West Virginia, and she is our disaster services and planning lead. So we're really lucky to have her on the webinar today in honor of National Preparedness Month. So just a little bit about our webinar series. If you haven't been here before, this is our monthly webinar series. We do it on the second Wednesday. And the purpose of it is to do trainings and to have fun and to enable us to meet new people across the state. And we have some really cool topics coming up for the rest of the year. Christina and I helped to organize all these. So next month is going to be Join AmeriCorps. If you haven't heard of AmeriCorps, it's a really great opportunity. And I know we have a few AmeriCorps members on the call today. We have Josh Wainstreet from Elkins, who is a Preserve WV AmeriCorps member. So it's going to be a great opportunity to learn about one of our best kept secrets. In November, we're going to talk about inclusive volunteerism. And then December, I know we'll all need this, is give yourself the gift of wellness. So if you haven't registered, be sure to sign up on our website. And as always, these webinars are free as our gift to you. And we are so lucky to be talking about National Preparedness Month. This has been a really popular topic. We had over 100 people register for today's webinar. And our hope today is that you'll be inspired to do one or two things to get prepared. I know after putting this webinar together, I'm going to be updating my emergency kit and learning how to turn off the utilities in my house. We just bought a new house. So I'm going to learn how to turn off the gas and the electric and the water. So those are my preparedness tips and what I'm going to be doing this September. So I hope you walk away with a few preparedness tips as well. So as an overview of what we're going to be doing today, we're going to open up with a preparedness quiz to see how prepared you are. And don't worry, it's not going to be scored. It's just a fun quiz, not like a pop quiz or anything. And then Gina's going to be explaining the 4 steps to be prepared. And then we're going to be meeting the Red Cross and learning about some of the volunteer opportunities they have throughout the state. So to get started, I'm going to pass it off to Christina to do our preparedness quiz. How prepared are you?
Thanks, Dana. So guys, I'm about to launch a poll. It's going to show up on your screen. Let's see here. I'm the Zoom guru, but even I get confused sometimes. Okay, so it should have popped up on your screen. Like Dana said, this is not graded. We're not taking any scores, but we just wanted a kind of quick snapshot of our who's in the room today, who's attending our webinar. So scroll through these questions. I believe there are 5 of them, and select whether or not, yes or no, you fit the criteria in each question. So we're asking, do you know how to turn off your utilities if you needed to? Do you have emergency supplies in a portable container? Do you have working smoke alarms in your home? Do you have your emergency contacts written down in your cell phone or on a piece of paper all in one place? And do you have a first aid kit in your emergency supplies? So I'm going to leave this up for about 30 more seconds, like I said, just so we can get a feel for how prepared for a disaster we all are. If you're still waiting, I'll give you a couple more seconds to get your answers in, and then we'll kind of see how you fit into the group's answers. All right, it looks like we've got about 80% of folks have voted in the poll. I'm going to count down from 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm going to close the poll. And hopefully you guys can see the results on your screen. Most of us know how to turn off our utilities, which is actually surprising because I have absolutely no idea. And like Dana said, that was one thing that I am definitely going to be looking into looking at some of the other questions, we've got a pretty good split. Luckily, most of us have working smoke alarms. That's wonderful. I know our friends at the Red Cross are excited to see that. 98% of folks have a working smoke alarm. Most of us have our emergency contacts, and a little bit over half of us have a first aid kit. So as we are looking over these opening quiz questions, keep them in the back of your mind on things that you see room for improvement on in your life. Go ahead and bring that poll down. And now that we have an idea of some of the things we'll be talking about, I'll turn it over to our disaster services lead. Gina, you can go ahead and take it away. Gina's going to be pulling up her slides, and make sure you unmute yourself, Gina, so we can hear you. Perfect.
Okay, is it showing?
We can see your slides, and yep, now it's in the big mode, so you're good to go.
Okay, I can't see it for some reason.
Oh wait, no, I just see a black screen.
Yeah, there it is.
There you go.
Okay, we can all see it now. Okay, thank you. So before we get into the 4 steps of being prepared, well, why is it important to be prepared? We're all really busy. We don't need a lot of extra things to do in our lives. But let's find out why it is important to be prepared. Well, first of all, disasters don't usually announce themselves. Even if we get some bad weather warning, a lot of times we don't have enough time to get our supplies together and be prepared for bad weather. A lot of people are rushing to the stores where they can't find their batteries if the power goes out for their flashlight. So you want to be prepared ahead of disasters. Secondly, first responders are a limited resource. They only make up 1% of the population, and during a widespread disaster, they may not be able to get to you. They may have roads that are blocked, no access or limited access, and they're going to be addressing the most critical needs during that disaster. So you need to be ready to be able to take care of yourself for the first few hours or days of a disaster. Also, your critical services can be impacted. You could lose electricity. You may not have running water, such as when we were impacted by the water contamination in 2014. About 9 counties couldn't use their water for several days. Here in Kanawha County, it was for well over a week, and we all had to use bottled water. So personally, I hate to admit, but I did not have 1 bottled water in my home when that occurred. So that is something you want to think about. How can you survive and meet your needs during a disaster if you lose those critical services? Also, natural disasters over the last few decades have not only been increasing by the numbers, they're increasing in costs. And just this summer alone, nearly 1 in 3 Americans have experienced a weather-related disaster. So it's important to be prepared because anything can happen at any time. And the most critical action that you can do to protect yourself and your family, your home, and your pets if you have them, is to take those steps now and to be better prepared. So what are the 4 steps to being prepared? You want to be informed, make a plan, build a kit, and be involved. Step 1, being informed. Know the area, know the hazards in your area. Do you live near a chemical plant or industrial complex? Of course, we all experience severe storms. Do you live by a creek or river or a place that floods often? And of course, we're all prone to power outages depending on the weather. So think about where you live and what's likely to happen in your neighborhood. Also, how are you going to be informed? If you'd like to take a second to put in the chat box a way that you've been contacted by local emergency officials, I'd like to see some of those answers. If you've been contacted through what they call reverse 911 calls, where they leave messages on your voicemail. Of course, other traditional alerts, public alerts, are through the radio and television. And there are optional alerts that some county emergency managers use that you can opt into or sign up for. For instance, you could sign up for text alerts or email alerts. Some counties have mobile apps, and you can also follow those officials on those official agencies on social media to stay up to date with disaster information. I wanted to highlight Kanawha County has their own mobile app called KC Ready. You can download that app, and it gives you real-time alerts for disasters, including traffic and weather incidences. There's also a platform called Nixle. It's an emergency communications platform, and you can go to their website, nixle.com. You can type in your zip code to see what agencies in your area use that communications platform, and you can sign up to get text messages from this platform and from whatever organization uses that particular platform. Also, I wanted to highlight that FEMA has an emergency app. It has several features on it, one being where you can get weather alerts. You can program it to get up to 5 different locations in the United States. It also has a preparedness feature where you can get tips on different seasonal hazards and other checklists and information. It provides information on disaster resources like shelters or FEMA resources. And it also has a feature where you can upload your photos if you were impacted by a disaster to share with emergency management. So it's a free app. Check it out. Let's see what happened. I'm sorry. It just, I'm not sure what happened. I think it's clicking on a link that I have. Okay. So there's 3 types of weather alerts. Do you all know what those are, what they mean? If you get an advisory, watch, or warning. Well, you can kind of tell by the color codes, it looks like a stoplight, that the advisory is something that is less serious. It may be occurring or imminent, but it is less serious than the other 2. A watch is a weather condition that may happen, but the timing and location is uncertain. It's more serious, and it's something that they want you to keep watch of, keep track. And then lastly, warning poses a threat to life or property. It's occurring or imminent, and you have to take protective action right away. Another way to be prepared is before each season, think about the hazards that come with that season. In the fall, it tends to be dry and windy, light fires. Sometimes we're more prone to fires in the fall. Winter has ice and storms. Spring is prone to lots of rain and flooding, and summer can have heat waves. A good place to find some specific preparedness tips is there at the National Weather Service's site. If you go to weather.gov, I put it there /safety campaign. They have a lot of preparedness tips for each season. You also want to prepare for extreme temperatures. Whether it's extremely cold or hot, you definitely want to try to stay indoors. In the heat, you want to limit your outdoor activity, drink plenty of water, and avoid caffeine. If for some reason you lose your power and you don't have air conditioning, public officials doing a large scale, or if it's wide scale power outages in your community, will open a cooling station. They'll also do this in extreme cold temperatures too, if there's a lot of homes that are without power for any length of time. So that is something you can be aware of. And in the heat, you want to be aware of heat exhaustion symptoms. Some of those include weakness, dizziness, faintness, or fast, weak pulse. If you feel that way, you want to get inside, cool off, and drink plenty of fluids. If you feel worse, then you need to call 911. So during winter, one of the things everyone does is gets out and shovels the snow. You get out in the early morning, get that snow off the sidewalk and out of the driveway. But it's also a critical time, and it can be dangerous for some people who are older or out of shape. So here are some tips that you want to remember before going out and shoveling a bunch of snow all at once. Try to hold off and not do it first thing in the morning. Wait till your body warms up and the day warms up. In the morning, the heart is more prone to blood clots. You want to use a smaller shovel because it's less heavy. Dress warm and in layers, and cover your face, which will help protect your lungs from the cold. Also take shifts. Don't shovel for a whole hour or half an hour. Shovel in shifts and take breaks. Also, be aware of the warning signs of a heart attack, which would be chest tightness, lightheadedness, and dizziness. And if you suspect you or a loved one is feeling this way or having a heart attack, call 911. There are several types of severe weather hazards, ranging from tornadoes to floods, high winds, and hail. For all of these weather hazards, you obviously want to try to stay indoors and bring your pets inside as well. Unless there are evacuation orders, stay inside. For high wind weather or extreme winds, you'll want to secure your outdoor objects. And all year round, keep your trees and shrubs trimmed. This will keep them from damaging your home. Also, if there's a high wind or hurricane warning, you want to stay away from any windows or doors and seek shelter in a basement or maybe an inner room that doesn't have a window, like a bathroom or a closet. And also be prepared for power outages. Some power outage prep tips. Of course, like I said before, you want to have your flashlight and a fresh pack of batteries. Keep it in a location that you know where it's at. And if you know ahead of time that there's going to be severe weather, I always suggest that you fill your car with gas, because if you have a widespread power outage, like during the 2012 derecho, over 400,000 people were without power. And many of the gas stations, ATMs, did not work. You could not pump gas and you could not get cash. So that's one of the things you want to think about ahead of time. You also want to have alternate charging methods for your phones and mobile devices. Think about food safety. You can see how long your food is going to last during a power outage. And have a backup plan. If you use medical equipment that uses electricity, have a backup plan for power, whether that be a battery backup, or call the vendor who provides you with the equipment to make sure that you have some type of resource to continue using your equipment. If you're using alternative heat sources, follow the manufacturer's instructions and use it safely. Any gas-powered generators should be used outside and away from the home and garage because that can cause carbon monoxide poisoning. How am I on time? I don't see my time.
You're doing great, Gina. You've got 20 minutes.
Okay. So here's learn how to shut off utilities. Sometimes local officials, depending on the weather or what's happening, or you might have, your home might be having a gas leak or something, you'll want to learn where your main switches are for your utilities. Identify where those are. If you don't know where they are, you can call your local utility and they'll be glad to help you. Identify it, tag it, learn how to turn it off, and share those instructions with your family. Flooding. Flooding is a common hazard here in West Virginia because of our mountainous terrains and all the little creeks and rivers that go through the valley. It's a common issue that we have. If you have weather alerts for flooding in your area, you want to be prepared and move to higher ground. Unless you're asked to evacuate, or then do that. Always follow official instructions. Home and rental insurance policies are good to have because they protect your property and provide some insurance against damage. However, most people don't realize that floods caused by a natural disaster are not covered by those policies. Only people who are in high-risk areas are required to have flood insurance. And those flood insurance policies are managed by the National Flood Insurance Program. You can find out more about that at floodsmart.gov. I think they have a mapping tool as well that you can find out if you fall within that low, moderate, or high risk category. Also, you can contact your local insurance agent and they can help you find out more about getting flood insurance. Last tip on flooding, don't get out in it. If you happen to be driving and the water is rising, don't drive through a flooded road. You want to turn around and don't drown. Seems pretty common or practical or common sense, but some people will try it. You don't really know how deep it is. And what you don't realize is that moving water can knock over a person if it's just 6 inches tall. And a foot of water that's moving fast can sweep away a car, a small car. And up to 2 feet of water can carry away most SUVs and some trucks. And if you ever, God forbid, get caught in a, it's rising and you're in your car and you can't get out, you can pull your headrest off and use the metal pieces to bust open your window. There's also something called a break glass tool that you can get from an auto store and keep that in your car for in case of an emergency. Step 2, make a plan. You'll want to write down all your emergency contacts in one place and talk with your family about any designated meeting places. For instance, if your home were damaged or you had a house fire or flood and you can't get back to your home, where would you meet? You want to have all your contact information for work and school, medical contacts and information, as well as homeowner insurance and other policy information, so you'll have it on hand. You can start by completing at our website, ready.wv.gov. We have a nice little template that asks you for all this information, and you can download it and fill it out. Christine will just put our website in the chat box. So, and the other little tip is that create an ICE in case of emergency contact in your phone. If something were to happen to you and you are unconscious, they can look in your phone to see who that emergency contact is. You also want to think about the different hazards when you're creating your plan and get to learn about the emergency plans for where you work and for school. If you're at school, if you go to school or your children go to school, you'll want to be familiar with what those plans are, how they contact you in case of emergencies, and make sure you're in the loop. Step 3 is build a kit. I just ask everyone if they want to just put their ideas of what should be in your emergency kit. Just take a second and then we'll go over some of the basic contents.
We did have someone earlier, Gina, chime in and say that a AM FM radio would be a great thing to have in your emergency kit.
Yes, yes. That is the first, well, I don't know why it's not loading. That's like the first thing on the list, bravo, but it's not coming up for me for some reason. Oh, should I escape out of here?
You can, Gina, and see and scroll down.
Okay,
let's pane on the left and.
Yeah, let me get back to, I don't know what happened to our.
It's never a Zoom meeting without.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think it just like it locked up and it wouldn't. Okay, here we are. Okay, there it is. There she goes. Radio. Hi, there you go. Perfect. Flashlight and batteries. Little tip, keep your batteries separate in their own container so they don't corrode. Your first aid kit. Tools in case you need to turn off utilities. Have a paper map. What if all of a sudden cell towers are out or you're, evacuating, you have no cell service? Google Maps is not going to work for you. And that's really true here in West Virginia. There was no emergency and we were out in Lincoln County for work and we got lost, one of my coworkers. So you really need to have a map. Keep a West Virginia map in your glove compartment. Have your emergency plan that we talked about earlier. Keep that in your kit. Paper goods like paper towels, moist wipes, cups and plates. Save a little cash if you can to keep in your kit. A can opener for food. A whistle and a dust mask, face mask, and hand sanitizer, which we've all been using over the last year and a half. You want to have a 3-day supply minimum of non-perishable food like peanut butter, crackers, granola bars. Water is really important. And keep 1 gallon per person per day. So that would be 3 gallons per person. So your kit you want to have last for at the very minimum 3 days. Have extra medication or medical equipment nearby. And if you have pets, have pet supplies, baby supplies, or any other special needs that your family may. You want to keep it in a portable container so that in case you have to evacuate, you can just pick it up and go. And think about other locations that you might need a kit, like your car, in case you get stuck in traffic or an accident and you break down. Edmunds has a great car list, or if you go to our website, ready.wv.gov, and click Build a Kit, there'll be links to car kits. And so that'll give you some good tips on what to keep in your car. You want to update your kits at least twice a year, and the best time to do it is when we change our clocks. It's also the time that they encourage us to check our smoke alarms, make sure they're working and the batteries are operating. Some last fun prep tips, use your wash machine for a cooler in case your power goes out. If you have AAA batteries, but you need AA's, you can scrunch up some tin foil and fill in that area and then on the negative side of the battery. Have salt, buy it before the winter even gets here so you don't get stuck in that first snow with no salt for your steps or your driveway. And hand sanitizer is a great way to unfreeze your car handle. And if you're stuck in the snow, you can use your floor mats for traction.
Hey, Gina, we had a request for you to go back 2 slides, I think to the one with the batteries. I don't think they were able to.
Okay, great. All right, sorry.
There you go.
Okay. So see, they're crunched up on the right side. You know, the flat side of the battery is where you would put it, not where the little nub is. And it's a temporary thing until you can get batteries. And I don't know if anyone uses Crisco anymore, but put a piece of rope in it and you've got a candle. I think you can also get a jar, put oil and a rope in it. But I'd say it's probably better to have, just keep some candles and matches in your kit. Are we good? Because I can't see the chat.
Yep, we're good to go, Gina. Thanks for going back.
Okay, great. So lastly, step 4 is to be involved. In other words, you need to train and practice. Do a fire drill with your family. Take CPR or first aid training. Our staff did fire extinguisher training this year, and it's a great learning experience. I have a little fire extinguisher at home, and my toaster caught on fire one day, and I had no idea how to use it. So it did me no good. So that's an important lesson to learn. Invite a local first responder over to talk about safety to your neighborhood association, and create a call down list for your neighbors. Everyone should have each other's numbers in case of a disaster. You can check on each other. And lastly, if you want to help during a disaster to help respond, you can join the American Red Cross. They have a lot of volunteer opportunities, or reach out to your local first response agencies like the fire department, the police department, and the health department. They all have, most of them have volunteer programs that you can join. And there are other disaster volunteer agencies you can learn about at wvvoad.org. So to get started, like I said, I encourage everyone to go to our website, ready.wv.gov, and get started. Click the resources, and there's a personal prep toolkit that will have the family emergency plan form, and it'll have your emergency checklist and other tools that you can use to get started. So ready.wv.gov, click resources, and you'll find the toolkit. And that's it for me. Any questions or?
Thank you so much, Gina. You had so many really creative and cool tips in there. And once I start sharing my screen, you should be able to see the chat box. So if you see any questions that we didn't answer, feel free to answer them in the chat box as we move forward with our next portion of today's webinar, which is our program spotlight. Dana, I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Christina. And in the meantime, we'd love to hear one preparedness activity you're going to take. So you could put that in the chat box too. If something inspired you from Gina's presentation today, like learning how to turn off your utilities or making a candle out of Crisco, put that in the chat box. I'm sure Gina would like to read about what inspired you all. So next up, we have a program spotlight. And if you are really inspired by today's topics, we're going to talk a little bit about how you can volunteer during a disaster. So we are really lucky to have Julie and Katie from the American Red Cross today. They're from the Morgantown office, and they're just going to talk a little bit about different volunteer opportunities with the Red Cross. So hi, Julie and Katie.
Hi, Dana.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. To get started, Katie, I'd love to know, with all the recent disasters that have been occurring throughout the United States, what are some ways that volunteers can get involved and help out?
Well, thank you, Dana, and thank you, Gina, for that wonderful presentation. I learned so much, and I work for the Red Cross. It was really cool. And like somebody put in the chat, the ICE contact for emergencies, I'm definitely going to do. Unfortunately, natural disasters have become, instead of acute or episodic, they've really become just chronic. And due to that fast-paced nature of disasters, we have to have a volunteer workforce that is ready, trained, and able to meet the needs, to meet the people where they are. And so our most urgent volunteer needs right now are for shelter service associates. And those are the volunteers that you're going to see on the news that are in that background of the news story in the shelter, comforting people, checking them in, feeding them, giving them a place to stay, comfort blankets, helping them replace their medications. We have disaster health services. These are medical professionals. These are the nurses, doctors, physician assistants, EMTs, paramedics who are volunteering their time to go and help in these shelters with people who have lost everything. So they don't have their insulin, they don't have their medications, they don't have their glasses, they don't have their hearing aids. And these professionals are able to get them all those critical life-saving things that they need after they've just lost everything. So our two main volunteer needs in response to disasters that are happening large scale are those that are willing to go to those shelters and volunteer, either as a service associate or in a professional capacity as a disaster health services volunteer.
Thanks, Katie. And Julie, I would be curious if anyone's wondering, why is it so rewarding to volunteer for a disaster? How does it impact the volunteers that are helping in these shelters and really being there for people when they need it the most?
Thank you, Dana. Yes, if you're volunteering for a disaster, you in fact are helping somebody at their most critical time of need. So you're being that compassion, you're being that person where they may be possibly close to losing their lives or losing everything they own. So through that process, it's most rewarding. You also are working with your fellow volunteers with the Red Cross, and together you form one big family helping those in need. And I'm proud to say that our Central Appalachian region currently does have people deployed. They're in Louisiana, they're in New York, they're out west battling the fires. So we have people right here from our own community that have picked up, left everything, and answered the call to volunteer.
That's awesome. And we have a really interesting question in the chat box from Katrina. She was wondering, how does volunteering work for professionals that have full-time jobs? Are there still opportunities to help? So Katie, can you share a little bit about some of the other volunteer opportunities that the Red Cross has?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a great question. And that's the most challenging part, I think, of trying to get volunteers who are able to deploy for 14 days, to pick up and leave your family, your responsibilities. You have things at home, but there are several volunteer opportunities that you can do virtually. There are also ones that you can still do in person, but are local. So for example, we have local disaster action team response. They respond to disasters right here in our communities. Most of them, unfortunately, are home fires. In our region, we responded to over 1,184 home fires in 2020. And I'm from Huntington and was just kind of looking at what we did in the tri-state. And just in August alone, they responded to 18 fires, helping more than 50 people just within that community. So those volunteers are responding within 2 hours to people who have just lost their homes and everything that they've accumulated throughout their life. And they're giving them immediate assistance in terms of a place to stay. Things you might not think about, like a toothbrush, toiletries, financial assistance so that they can get food and clothes, and then the long-term recovery of how do you sort of mentally recover from all that, navigate your insurance, the mental health care, the spiritual care that comes with a trauma like that. So that local DAT response is needed. We also do blood drives. So we always need people who can help at our blood drives, checking people in, answering questions at the canteening area when they're done giving blood. And then in the Huntington, West Virginia area, we're opening up a new blood transportation specialist volunteer position where you can deliver blood from our Huntington facility directly to local hospitals. There are going to be some situations where you're going to be on call and it might be, hey, we need this blood at this hospital now, and there'll be a medical team waiting for that blood. It's so urgent. So that's another volunteer position that you could do right here in West Virginia.
There's been a lot of people interested in the chat box, Katie and Julie. So Joan wanted to ask if there are any volunteer opportunities for teenagers.
Yes. And if you can tell that we're passionate, me and Julie, we could talk about the Red Cross and volunteering for hours. So somebody please manage our time. But yes, we have many ways that youth can be involved in the Red Cross, and you know, they can't necessarily respond to the disasters. They might not even be old enough to do blood drives, but they can be wonderful advocates in volunteer recruitment, volunteer engagement in ways that only young people with their passion and energy can. And a lot of our youth really need that community service for their school or maybe a group that they're with, and we can be that outlet. And our goal is to create lifelong Red Cross volunteers. So having young people involved at a young age, we're hopeful will lead to a lifelong journey of Red Cross involvement.
Definitely. And then Amber brought up a really interesting point in the chat box. She said she hasn't donated blood since the pandemic started. And so, I mean, I imagine that would be a great way for teenagers to volunteer too, is to donate blood. And you all host blood drives across the state, right?
Exactly. And I believe there are some certain age limits for donating blood as well. So, but yes, gosh, having schools host a blood drive and a lot of our people who organize blood drives say those blood drives that are organized by young people are usually the most fun and have a great turnout. So, you know, you can do promotions for those blood drives as well, you know, get out into your community, let them know that you're having it, what time it is, and being able to promote it is fun too. And of course, young people are into social media. So any ways that they can help spread the word in ways that we don't even know how to is always welcome as well.
So it's so cool to see how many people are interested in what you all do in the chat box. I think your passion is contagious and it's just really neat. So if anyone on this call was inspired to volunteer today, Julie, how can they get involved? What's the easiest way for them to connect with their local Red Cross?
We'd love to have you, so please do join us. We basically have something for everyone. All you have to do is visit redcross.org/volunteer and start your Red Cross application. And once it's completed and your background check is completed, a Red Cross manager will reach out to you and find out what fits your needs and time availability and get you started.
And what's on the screen right now, the first thing we talked about were the shelter service associates and disaster health professionals who deploy. If anyone is interested in those positions or knows somebody that would be interested, we're hosting 3 informational sessions. One is this evening at 5:30. There's one Friday at 12:30 and then one Saturday at 9 a.m. And to view those dates and times and to RSVP, you can visit redcross.org/car help today. And I'll put that in the chat so that you guys know where you can visit to be able to see those dates and times and RSVP.
Thanks, Julie. So you all have provided so many ways to help today, from blood drives to being deployed for a disaster. And if you're interested in being deployed for a disaster right now, be sure to tune into these 3 informational sessions, and the Red Cross will cover a portion of your travel and lodging. Correct, Julie, if you're deployed?
Yes, correct.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's a great way to make a huge difference. So Julie and Katie, is there anything else you want to add?
Just that the Red Cross will actually cover all travel expenses and lodging when you're deployed.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. I thought that was the case, but I didn't want to make any false promises. So if you are inspired by Julie and Katie, be sure to reach out, visit the Red Cross website and get involved. And I wanted to thank Julie from the Morgantown office and Katie from the Huntington office. And thank you so much for all that you do and sharing a little bit about the Red Cross today.
The thank you
Thank
is
you.
all from us. Yes, thank you for having us.
Awesome. So if you all are interested in volunteering for the Red Cross, we'd love to hear what you'd like to do in the chat box. And then to close us out today for our National Preparedness Month webinar, we're going to do one more preparedness quiz. So Christina, you ready to take it over?
I am ready to take it over. Thanks, Dana. So guys, we have thrown a lot of information at you all today. We hope you've learned something. I know that I have learned many somethings, but we do have a short little quiz to see how much we are walking away from today's webinar with. So this one, again, not graded, but this one is more about what information you may have retained from our presentation today. I am gonna launch that right now, and I'll give you guys about a minute to answer these 6 questions about some of the preparedness information. I'm gonna give you about 1 more minute. So if you have not submitted your answers yet, get your answers in. About 10 more seconds. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed my little Jeopardy tribute with our music. It's always good thinking music. So I'm gonna go ahead and close the poll and we will see how our responses match up with the correct answers. So I have the correct answers right in front of me. We'll quickly move through these to see if you were able to retain the information that we were throwing at you today. Our first question was, what is the minimum number of days that your supplies and your emergency kit should last? The correct answer is 3 days, and 97% of you guys got that right. Great job, everyone. We're off to a good start. Our next question was about how much water you should store for emergencies. The correct answer is 1 gallon per person per day. Again, the majority retained that information about water. That one is so super important, especially here in West Virginia, where we see a lot of flooding consistently, where sometimes our water systems are rendered inaccessible. Our third question was, what other location besides your home should you store an emergency kit? The correct answer is all of the above. Ideally, we'd want to have an emergency kit anywhere where we could get stranded, right? So car, work, school, all of those things, it's a good idea to have an emergency kit there. Our next question was, during an emergency, is it best to communicate with family or friends by calling them? This was a true or false question. We had kind of a split here, but the correct answer is false. The best way to communicate in an emergency, if you have cell phone service, is to text, because it requires less battery and less bandwidth than a phone call. So that's a little tidbit of information. And let's see, next up, how often should you update your emergency kit? Most of us got that one right as well. Every 6 months, Gina had the great suggestion of updating your emergency kit whenever you change your smoke detectors or when you set your clocks back. Those are great reminders to also update your emergency kit. And our final quiz question, which weather alert is the most serious? The correct answer is warning. A tornado warning or a flood warning means that there is imminent threat to life or property. So everyone give yourselves a round of applause. The majority of these questions we did pretty good on as a group. So I know I feel a little bit better that our community and you folks will be more prepared moving forward. We wanted to thank you guys so much for being here with us today for our Get Ready West Virginia Preparedness Volunteer West Virginia Wednesday. We try to make these fun and a little bit more fun than your everyday webinar. We really appreciate you guys being here. We do have a feedback survey that I'm going to drop in the chat box right now. We would absolutely love if you would take our feedback survey before you hop off today. We take your feedback into consideration for future topics so we can make these as fun and engaging as possible. So please take that feedback survey and we'll hang around for a couple of minutes in case anyone has any questions, but that is all we have for today. Thank you guys so much for being here. I mentioned it in the chat box. I will post this recording to YouTube and I will send out the slide deck for your information. So you'll have access to that sometime tomorrow. So thank you guys for being here. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.
I do have a question in the chat. Gina, I don't know if you could speak to this question, but the question is, what is the best way to store water in West Virginia? Anyone have any insight for that one? Gina, if you're talking, you're muted. I can't hear you. Just buy bottled.
Yeah, I just buy bottled water. I know there's different ways you can store water. There, you can see instructions online where you clean out like old milk bottles with a little Clorox and stuff, and then, and you can look at those. But I just buy bottled water and store it.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most accessible and best way.
Yeah.
And of course, you always want to store bottled water in a cool, dark place where it's
Right.
in direct sunlight.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I keep mine in the basement.
Yeah, that's really smart. I keep mine in our closet. Are there any other questions before we sign off for the day? And appreciate all the feedback. Let me drop that survey link in the chat box one more time. Again, we totally appreciate any feedback you can give us about what you liked, what you didn't like, and what you might hope to see in the future. Water bricks. Oh, that's really cool, Sarah. I've never heard of those.
I haven't either.
And make things easier when you need them. Huh, I'll have to look into that. Wonderful. Thank you guys so much for the comments. It always makes things so much more enjoyable when we have engagement from attendees, and you guys always knock it out of the park. I'm not sure what a water brick is, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be Googling it once I get off of here.
Yeah.
Hi, okay if I talk?
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, so a water brick holds like between 5 to 10 gallons at a time. So say if you have a well and once your electricity is out, you can't flush, for example, you could add the water that way. You could do it, say, for hand washing, as well as to refill water bottles. I like it because water bottles, you'd be going through a lot of plastic. This way,
right.
You can store it. And I think you can store the water there before it goes bad for like 5 to 7 years.
Wow.
I have to look back into it. But yeah, that's it. I just found it like a nice, easy solution for preparedness, which I actually have personally at my house because of electricity issue, you know, like power outages, and we're on a well.
Yeah.
So
the water brick is like the container.
Yeah, the water brick is the container.
Cool.
It's 3.5. There's like up to 3.5 gallons of water or larger, and it comes in stacks. So
That's really great.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it might be a little bit expensive depending on your budget, but I think they come in different varieties and prices too. Who knows if the prices have gone up, if people are all unprepared.
Right.
I bought them a long time ago.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that, Sarah.
Sorry, I'll mute myself again.
Oh, yeah, that's good information. And I see someone who says you can fill your bathtub up with water, you know, if you have enough warning, that's true too, to use to flush toilets or other things.
That is definitely good information. We love our input from our community of volunteers. Thank you guys so much for chiming in. It makes these really fun. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So we're going to go ahead and close the webinar for today. Of course, I'm shamelessly dropping that survey link in the chat one more time. If you haven't had a chance to click on it and save it for later, make sure you click on it now. And I'm going to go ahead and close this out for the day. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and look out for the recording and the slides in your inbox sometime tomorrow. See everybody later. Happy National Preparedness Month.